Don Reichelt, what's up, buddy? Welcome back to the Code. How are you today?
Good, Andrew. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. You and I, we still need to get that run on the calendar, so we're gonna do it. I feel like I've been dropping the ball there with things being busy, but this is fun, you guys. We've got Don Reichelt back. If you've been a listener on the Code before, you may have recognized this name. We did an episode we were just discussing off air a year and a half ago, and it was episode 108. I was listening to that this morning as I was kind of preparing for our conversation today. And we got into all sorts of cool stuff on there. We talked a lot about obviously your running background as an ultramarathoner, but your crew participation in college and how, you didn't grow up as what you would consider the most talented or like best athlete, but you're just a hard worker and the mindset piece is super, super relevant and important to your success. And we talked all sorts about data, recovery, things that impact your ability to go out and perform every day. So if you guys haven't listened to that episode, I would highly encourage it. But Don, for those who have not, would you just do a quick favor for us? Just reintroduce yourself a little bit, and then we'll get into it here today.
Yeah, my name's Don Reichelt. I now live just outside of Denver. Last time, Andrew, you and I talked, I was living up in the mountains in Fairplay.
There you are.
Have since moved back, but I'm a competitive ultra runner. Have a handful of successes, a lot on flatter and looped courses, and also a couple of world records on a treadmill.
Yeah.
So have done a handful of things. Also tend to work specifically in the health and wellness space and the endurance sports space. So have spent my professional work career in running and health tech and anything directly related to keeping people healthy is pretty much where I've been professionally.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. And it goes hand in hand, right? It's fun when the things that you're passionate about doing align with the things that you get to do as a part of your career and whatnot, and those two things just kind of fuel each other. You know what they say, when you enjoy what you're doing, you'll never work a day in your life, right? So the
Yep.
uh the thing that I'm really excited to talk to you about on this conversation today is give you an opportunity or a platform to kind of brag about some of these world records that you just alluded to there, because we really didn't get into that on the last conversation. But one of the things I want to start with, just before we recorded that last conversation, you had recently become a client in our office at PhysioRoom, and now fast forward, it's been a year and a half later, you're still a client of ours, and we really enjoy working with you as we do with all the other folks we have the opportunity to work with. How was it, Don, that you wound up in our office in the first place? What led to that? Because I don't really remember.
Yeah, and I think it's a even a more interesting story because I was living 2 hours away from the
Right.
physio room location that I started at. So it wasn't just a choice of convenience. It was a choice of purpose. And it actually started, oh man, 8 years ago. I
Yeah.
met Chris Roble at an event and got to know him a little bit. And it was always kind of on my radar of what he was trying to do and what he was trying to build. And more and more as I progressed throughout my career, I started getting these just like little annoying injuries, the ones that wouldn't necessarily keep me from training or performing, but they're always just like, man, like I wonder what would happen if I could just get rid of this little thing that's going on. It just really is, it bugs me. And so like, okay, well, as I enter my late 30s and I turn 40 here in just a few months, I knew I needed to start actually respecting the body a little bit more when it came to those little aches and pains. And so I kind of did a series of what I would call like an analysis of what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it. And it kept coming back like, okay, maybe work with a PT that has some running specific backgrounds that understands elite athletes and elite competitors. And so that actually brought me back to Chris Roble and Physio Room. So I was like, okay, well, like let me just set up an appointment with him and talk about it a little bit. And so
Yeah.
I went into the office the first time, worked with him a few times, and then he was kind of in his stage of transitioning out of a lot of patient care.
Yeah.
And luckily, Dr. Ali was kind of taking over some of his workload, and he introduced me and handed me off to Dr. Ali, and it's been it's been a really, really strong relationship since. I'm actually seeing her in 2 days right
Yeah, there you
now,
go.
and it's one of those things that it comes up on the radar. It's like, all right, like
Yeah.
we get these little aches and pains. We get some needles poked in them. We get a thumb in the side of the hip where it's been bugging me, and it's just immediately I felt like the team at PhysioRoom understood both what was going wrong and what I wanted to accomplish.
Yeah.
And I think in the PT experience that I've had in the past, they can maybe understand one of those two things. And so it was kind of unique to me to have somebody that not only understands, okay, this is somebody that wants to compete at the highest level in the world and that wants to go compete for national championships and compete for a world team. But this is here like the fine tuning that we need to do to be able to help him accomplish that. So I felt like it was a really, really good fit. And since then, I've even started working a little bit with Cassie, the strength and conditioning coach, and doing some strength work. And so I'm kind of taking it all in house. I've now gotten a massage or two at PhysioRoom. So I've kind of just figured now that I live 10 minutes from the office, I might as well take all of my preventative maintenance, if you will, in house at PhysioRoom.
Yeah, we'll just get to work there on a parking space with your name on
Pretty
it.
much.
Put
It's great.
We'll put a placard there. Yeah, I mean, I love what you said, and I think there's some, Midwestern running and folks connections that you and I have, like people that we both know
Yep.
that have been clients of ours at Physio Room, or we've all found our way out here to Colorado, which is kind of funny. And the stars aligned in the right way, where it leads us to the same place. And
Yeah,
like you just
exactly.
mentioned, we're fortunate at Physio Room, and there's other places that do this too, but it's so common that we hear somebody say something similar to the experience that you just mentioned that you had in physical therapy in the past, where, I feel like they understood what I was trying to do, or they understood what was going wrong, but they didn't really understand where I was trying to get to, like one of those two
Yep.
things. Or we hear so often that my insurance only allowed me to go for 6 visits, or like whatever the story might be. The system let me down, or the person wasn't in the right office in order to help me the way that they really could. So I couldn't really get exactly what I was looking for. And by choosing not to contract with these insurance providers, it allows us to offer a place for really high quality clinicians to come work with clients in a way that they know how, really express the full extent of their skill set and their
Yep.
license, and really help take people anywhere along that spectrum. You could be dealing with a significant injury, and we could be really on the rehab side of things, trying to get back to sport. Or someone could be like you, where they're still participating in their sport on a daily and weekly basis, but there's those nagging things that are there
Yep.
preventing you from performing truly at 100%. And we want to address those things too. Um, and then you mentioned we have physical therapy, of course. We have strength and conditioning coaches on our team. We have massage therapists on our team. And it's nice when we have the ability to kind of like cross collaborate there and
Yep.
have that collaboration in house, even between like in the conversation between our providers, where we can talk about what's going on and hey, this is what I'm
Yeah.
seeing, this is what I think Don or whomever the client is need.
Even the sessions with Cassie for strength, Allie was right around the corner.
Yeah,
You could see,
your head in there.
every once in a while she would just be watching
Yeah.
and formulating and chirping a little bit and yapping from the office on form and what we're working on. So it's just it's really cool to have that all connected versus me trying to see a PT and then take it to a strength coach and then take it to a like it's a lot.
They're trying to communicate over text or email or whatnot. Like,
No, and just
we do
having it
that.
all in one house is
We definitely do
it's
that with other
simplified
coaches.
my life.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
We definitely do that with other coaches that our clients have. We do our best to keep in contact with them and make sure we're
Yep.
on the same page. But when you're in the more traditional physical therapy office, that's like high volume, and the therapist is trying to juggle numerous clients at once. They're trying to see 15 or more clients a day. They just can't do what you just said. Like they can't kind of keep their
Right.
head on a swivel and notice, oh, this is what I see Don doing next week when I see him for his visit. We're going to work on these things because they're
Yep.
too busy trying to juggle all their documentation, all the clients they're
Yep.
working with. It's just, it
Yeah, and to
is.
your point, Allie did do a great job previously when I was 2 hours away, shooting my strength coach a note or
Yep.
keeping in touch. Like, hey, he should add this to his routine and things like that. But just from simplicity standpoint, when I know that the communication is happening, it's been great. And also, I've sent my father-in-law to you guys, and he's in his late 60s now, going and planning a big backpacking canoe trip
Wow.
for the second year in a row, and works with a team to make sure that he can carry a canoe for like 100 miles, or canoe and portage and backpack and all that stuff. So it's pretty cool just seeing, obviously, for me, staying competitive and trying to be an elite athlete, whereas he's just wanting to do cool shit in his late 60s.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate the kind of on the spot testimonial there. Anybody that we have the chance to work with, it's really a privilege to get to work with them because it really gives us the opportunity to like feel a little sense of those like tiny wins when our clients go out and do really cool things that that we had a part in that, not that we're the ones doing it, but it's like it makes us feel just so good to be able to celebrate
Yeah.
those wins with people. Now, on the topic kind of coaching and whatnot, don't you do some coaching as well?
Yeah, I work with a handful of endurance athletes on the running side.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. It's interesting. I feel like a lot of times someone who participates a lot in or especially if someone is like particularly good at a certain activity, at a certain point they end up starting to become a coach of that activity because of the prestige or the recognition that they're starting to receive there.
I love the less the prestige side of it and more just the give back and watching the
Yeah.
sport grow. And if there's something that I can do, and there are some people that they'll reach out on Instagram. They're like, hey, I don't really want a coach, but do you have time for a coffee? It's like, yeah, absolutely. Like, if you're new to the sport and you want to sit down and talk ultra running and the stuff that I would change when I got into the sport, like, I will always do my best to make time for that, just because I'm super passionate about the sport and the people in it and how I can just do my part of watching other people succeed and grow around me.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love that. And we need more people that do that exact same thing right there in all the different facets. Let me ask you a real broad question, Don, as we start to, talk about some of the events that you've done and what you've got coming up. You started doing ultra endurance running years ago. And how many ultra marathons or specifically, I know you really like the 100 plus mile races. How many of those have you done at this point?
Great question. I think I'm at 20 or 2100 plus mile races
Cool.
and probably 50 races total that you would consider an ultra.
Yeah,
So
cool.
over 50K or over is what I started
Yeah.
at.
Yeah. Not 26.3 miles or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, the short ultra.
So here's my broad question.
Yeah.
What sort of like major things or what themes have you learned or what major lessons have you learned from when you started doing ultra races
Yep.
to now? Like where have you gone through the most growth in terms of like your training, your
Yeah.
preparation, et cetera, et cetera? What would you say for that?
I think the most important thing that I've learned and that I have implemented is that it's okay not to have all the answers and to surround yourself with a team that does potentially have the answers. And so, not to make this a continuation of our chat on the physio room side of things, but it's honestly it's finding experts that can help you. So, hey, like, I'm having a weakness at mile 60. Okay, get a strength coach. I'm having nutritional issues here and there. Get a RD, a registered dietitian that can help you plan that out. And I respect that not everybody has the resources to be able to just throw money at solutions and hire coaches, but there are people and there are just resources out there that can help. So finding answers in very specific areas helps.
Yeah.
That obviously doesn't detract from take away from the bulk of it being the training and the hard work that goes into it that you have to do. But I look at it as if there's little things that I can offload, whether it's just, hey, strength coach, give me, like, I have X, Y, and Z weakness. I'm having glute med issues. Like, program some stuff and then I just wake up and do it, that makes my life a lot easier. If I can work through a problem with somebody else on the nutrition side, that makes my life easier. So that's probably the biggest thing I've learned is that it's okay to not know everything by myself and to trust a team and to have a team. And then the other thing is, and this has gone in waves in my career, is just to remember why you started doing it. Even if you start getting competitive in elite, is just to take the time to remember that there was a time where you weren't elite and you did it for joy and passion. And it's really easy as you get very competitive in something to kind of forget and overlook the joy and passion element. But especially for running, there are times that I 100% do not want to run, like straight up. And those are the days like, okay, I know how I'm going to feel when I get back from this run, and I know generally how I feel when I continue my training and things like that. And those are the days that I'll think of. And I know we talked about some mindset stuff the first time we chatted, but those are the days that I switch gears from pace and watch to, counting trees and listening to birds and resetting the like, hey, I got into this because I want to be outside and I want to be healthy. I did not ever consider this sport because I wanted to be competitive or I wanted to, go represent Team USA or whatever. I simply wanted to be outside. And those are the things that you cannot forget. The more you get into the sport, and it's any sport or any activity, is just remember the first run you did and how probably terrible you were and how rewarding it felt to get done with that workout. And so those are the most important things. It's like it's okay not to have all the answers. Surround yourself with a team, and then also just remember where you came from. Remember the passion and the joy and your why, and it should keep on keeping on.
Yeah, and as we close out this kind of, conversation about PhysioRoom specifically, I think that's another piece of it is that's why each of us that are on the team are on the team is so that we can surround ourselves with other people that make the ability to have the sum of the parts bigger than each
Yep.
of those individual pieces, right? Like the collective is bigger than each of us. And because each one of us providers on the team, like we can't be an expert in all of the things. Like, I can't walk around calling myself an expert in the sport of running if I also want to be an expert in dance and I also want to be an expert in bike
Right.
fitness and I also want to be an expert in fishing injuries or like whatever it might be, right? You can't really be an expert in all of those things. But as a group, when we bring new people onto the team, we're broadening the scope of what we can consider ourselves
Right.
in because we have different people that specialize in different things. And that's probably one of my favorite things about the team that we have is we
Yep.
really can touch a lot of people in terms of like the different sports and activities that they like to do. We have people that do a lot of different things. Not everyone on our
Yep.
team likes to run, and they don't. Not everyone likes to bike or lift or whatever.
Right.
They do something, and it just allows us that breadth. I think
I,
the remembering why you started is so important. I think I remember, I forget if this was a book or what I was listening to, but I remember Michael Phelps saying something very similar when he was winning all those gold medals, right, for Team USA. Is man, there were a lot of mornings where he did not want to jump in the pool, but he got in the pool anyways. And he wouldn't have accomplished all the things that he accomplished if he just made the choice day after day to not get in the pool whenever he didn't want to go
yep.
swim and do the workout. And I think there's a fine line there probably for a lot of people between remembering why you got into something and why you started. And if you can do that really well, I think that probably keeps you on the good side of this line I'm about to talk about. But I think people can start to feel a sense of burnout for something, whether
Yep.
it's sport or activity that they're doing, if they forget about that piece. If it's
Yep.
like, why did I get started in this? What brings me and keeps me coming back every day? Versus if it starts to feel like, well, this is just this thing that I have to do.
Right.
It's my
There
job.
there's a time in my running life that I realized I lost the joy and I did a deep analysis, like what am I doing? Is running not it anymore? Is it, and I realized that the honestly the biggest thing, and this is kind of maybe counter to what I just said before, is hiring experts, but it's I actually realized I was waking up and I was running for my coach every day, and I wasn't running for me. Like I was running the everything that was on paper, and I was doing it to a T, but it was like that was his plan, and it was less collaborative than I wanted it to be. And I felt almost detached from the process of running. And so there's ebbs and flows in the why and the joy behind things. So it's not a bad thing to say like, okay, this doesn't feel like it used to. What's wrong? Okay, well, it's you know how I'm managing and how I'm working with the coach isn't working. So I need to find either somebody new or redefine the relationship or just make a change. And I actually made a change, and I left the coach, and I was self-coached for about a year, and that was that like fact finding. And so okay, then I knew when I was ready to go back to a coach, I was like, okay, here's what I want out of a coach, and here's what I expect out of a coach, and here's how I will interact with the coach. And I was in a much better position to still run for myself while somebody was programming workouts.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're onto something there where like if you do that deep dive or that analysis, like the reason why you would continue to choose to do something can change, right? I
Absolutely.
feel like over the last year and a half since Aaron and I have had kids, I say kids because we have a son now, and then we're depending when you listen to this, we're about to have a daughter as well. My reason for training and whatnot has changed. Like I was just chatting with somebody else last week, and they were asking me like, "What are you training for?" And I was like, "Well, I have this trail 10-mile race coming up that I'd like to do, but part of the reason why I'm running that race is we're working that race and we're going to have a table set up and I'm going to be there anyway. So I'm like, well, I might as well go run. And I have the option, like if I'm not feeling it that day or my body's not feeling it, well, I can drop down to the 10K or I can just choose not to run it at all. It doesn't really matter to me because at the end of the day, at this point, I'm kind of just training for dad life. I'm training to
Yep.
be able to constantly be able to get up and down off the floor as these kids get older and they ask me to go outside and throw a ball or run around the yard. I want to just be able to say yes to those things every single time and not use physical inability as an excuse not to be able to go do the thing that they want to do. Now, if there's an injury or something along the way that prevents you from doing it, like, oh, I had shoulder surgery, so I can't throw or something, okay, that's one thing. But I don't want like, oh, dad's got that achy knee, he can't go
Yeah.
run around the yard. I don't want that to ever be the case. So my training right now is really like I want to keep my body as fit and active in full ranges of motion as possible so that I can express the activities with the kids. And our son is putting that to the test because he constantly wants you down on the floor playing with him. And tell you what, it's tougher getting up off the floor at 35 years old compared to when I was 25 years old or even 30 years old 5 years ago. So um, we really need to express our body and our tissues to those things that we expect them to be able to do. Otherwise, pretty soon you're not going to be able to do them. So,
Yeah, I have this principle, and it's one of the reasons I've started weightlifting more and really thinking long term with my health.
mhm.
Having some family behind around me that uh, maybe would be in a better position if they started lifting at a little earlier age or thinking about their health. And it's honestly, I can say it 100% in fact, I would rather never win another race than not to be able to walk and run when I'm 80. So like I would gladly commit to like giving up every podium for the rest of my career, knowing that I could still be physically fit, move and run when I'm 80.
Yep.
And because it's not there's a lot of people in the running space that are like, oh, ultra runners, why are you deadlifting heavy weights? It's like, well, um, honestly, I'm doing it because not only does it also make me a better runner. It also just makes me a healthier and a fitter human being. So
Yep.
I'm not going to have the back injuries or these little nagging injuries later on in life that I've seen a lot of people around me have. So that's I think about it a lot. Like if if I could guarantee whether there's an exercise or an activity that's like, okay, this is going to keep you healthy for life, and it's actually quite convenient though that that activity, the strength and conditioning and the lifting heavy, actually has made me a better runner and has made me more competitive. So
Yeah.
it's not a sacrifice I even have to make just because it doesn't exist.
It's funny how those things go hand in hand, right? I literally can't think right now of pretty much anything that being a more active, more fit, more strong individual wouldn't help you with. It's going to literally
Right.
help you with everything. Like lifting weights, being active, being fit is going to help you in literally every facet of your life, whether that's business, whether that's personal life, whether that's
Yeah.
fitness and athletic life. And I was listening to a podcast last week, and the host or the interview said something to the effect of like, there's never been a 90-year-old that said, "Oh, I wish I was in worse shape. I wish
Right.
I was less strong. I wish my bones were weaker than what they
Yeah.
are." Like we all want that when we get older. So what do you need to do today in order to prepare yourself for that way down the road? We're all going to decline in some capacity, most of us quite a lot. So you need to build yourself as much of a buffer as you can. So now you mentioned that same thing on our last conversation. I would rather be able to do X, Y, and Z when I'm 80
Yeah.
than ever win another race, than ever podium in another race.
Yep.
But you did just win a race
I did.
like less than 2 weeks ago. So
Yep.
tell us about that because that sounds like it was one of your races that was like had like one of the highest average elevations probably of a lot of the races you've done.
I think the
And
highest. Yeah.
yeah, which is so wild. And what I want you to end up talking about where we should go after this is let's talk about some of these flatter races that you've done, these track races, this treadmill records that you hold, and because those two things are so different, right? Running a
Yep.
race up in the mountains, climbing up and down, tons of feet
Yeah.
elevation versus running on a treadmill for 24 hours.
Yeah. So I'll start by saying there's kind of two sides of ultra running that I dabble in. One is long and flat, and one is long and mountainous. And the one that I enjoy the most isn't necessarily the one that I am most successful at or that I found my successful niche in. So I chalk that up to say is like I've been very successful on flat ultras and looped ultras, but I've always enjoyed the big mountains, the running, and just being out in the middle of nowhere and not seeing anybody for a long time. So usually I shape my seasons into a mountain block and a flat and fast block
Yeah.
and kind of split it up just so I'm not doing any of one thing all the time. And I go into my mountain block generally knowing that like it's not my specialty as an ultra runner. And it's something that like it's always challenged me and it's always kicked my butt, but I've loved it. I've loved every bit of it. So this past weekend, I did a race in Creede, Colorado, with the average elevation. It was 108 miles total of the race, and the average elevation that we were at was something like 11,300 feet, somewhere between 11,300 and 11,400 feet, with 20,000 feet of climbing in it. So you're basically going up and down around 11,000 feet for 108 miles. And it's kind of an old school style race. And what I mean by that is there's not a lot of frills. There's not a ton of aid stations. It's kind of take care of yourself and see if you survive situation. So
Hmm.
there were times where it was up to 4 hours in between aid stations at between 11 and 13,000 feet. The high point of the race is 13,300, just below that, something like that. And you're middle of the day, totally exposed in the heat of Colorado. I think it was 80 degrees at 11,000 feet. And it challenges you. Obviously, you're going up and down big mountains at that elevation. It's going to challenge you, but then it's hours and hours and hours until you can refuel and get more water. So you're either doing the math correctly and carrying a ton of water, or maybe trying to think of where that line of, okay, I'm going to take a little bit less water and chug water at an aid station, and it shouldn't impact me too much. And I miscalculated a few of those, and there were times I had a filter on my one of my bottles, and I was just filtering water out of puddles and just trying to get water however possible up there and take it in as much as I can when I can. But yeah, it was up and down. It was 108 miles. It was high elevation, and I was lucky enough to win the race. And I had gone into the day thinking like, on a good day, I can probably flirt with the course record. I can probably challenge it at least. And like it became quickly apparent that how hot it was that day was not in the cards. But I am super proud to know that I finished the race, I won the race, and it was still the fourth fastest time in course history.
Wow. That is, and the thing you just said that blows my mind more than anything is you just said this race was 108 miles. You just did it. The episode we did on the code was episode 108. So I guess the timing of us recording this was just like meant to be. That's something that you said too. You had a filter on one of your water bottles that you were carrying.
Yep.
That maybe sounds like one of those things that you picked up along the way of ultra running. Like I bet you there's plenty of people that go out to run ultra races and they don't have filters on their water bottles, and it leaves them in a bind if they do run out of fuel or something, or they
Yep.
run out of water. What do you do in between aid stations? You're SOL in that sense.
Yep. Yeah, the longer you're in the sport, it's one of those sports that like, there's some older dudes that just crush it and gals that are savages and can win. It's because they've picked up these little odds and ends, these
Prepared.
little tips and tricks throughout the years that it's like, okay, this is something that maybe it'll save me 30 minutes over 100 miles. And they have enough of them in their quiver that they're able to be competitive with somebody that maybe on paper should be faster than them. But you're eliminating mistakes and you're mitigating risk to be able to be successful. And it's like, yeah, I don't know if everybody brought a filter in this race. This race had more experienced people than most races just because of the altitude and the elevation and some of the factors of this race. It makes it a very difficult race. So it draws more of an experienced crowd. I don't know who else brought filters, but I am certain if I didn't have that filter, I wouldn't have finished the race.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's wild when you think back on it like that. And I agree. I think just running in general, whether we're talking about ultra marathons or whether we're talking about, not like 5Ks, but anything where you're running a distance that's taking multiple hours to run, even half marathons, even full marathons, something where like hydration, fueling, potentially quick stops to use the restroom or something like come into play. Yeah, experience goes a long way, and you can be very competitive at a pretty old age in a lot of these sports.
Yep.
Like if we look at marathon finishing times, the top finishing times of people in their 20s to people all the way in their 50s is like pretty damn close to the same. It's like
Yeah, the delta is very little.
there's a lot of people that are in their 50s that are running very fast in these distances. But like you just said, like they've got their fueling dialed in, they've got
Yep.
their hydration dialed in. Are they as physically fast in, a mile as these other people? No, they're
Nope.
probably not. But it all balances out over the course of it. And the thing that most people listening to this, if you're not an ultra marathoner and you fall into that camp like me, I'm not an ultra marathoner yet.
Yet.
Got to throw that in there. You just never
We're
know.
gonna call the yet out there for sure.
That most people can probably recognize, the transition stations of a triathlon, right? And whether it's a short distance sprint triathlon or it's a longer Ironman or something like that. I mean, if you're wasting a lot of time at these transition stations, it's going to completely crush your overall
Yep.
time to the race. So people who are at a high level, like that's where they really can save themselves minutes or even seconds, minutes on these races is being more efficient in their transitions, or like you said in the ultra world, like picking up tips and tricks that will save you a few minutes here, a few minutes there over the course of a multi-hour race, makes a big difference in the end.
On the flip side of that, I think the wisdom also comes with knowing where taking an extra few minutes will pay off
Mm.
on the long term. So if, for example, like when I noticed that I was overheating or getting really warm, it's like, okay, when I come into this aid station, I'm gonna take a few extra minutes to be able to drink an extra bottle of water and maybe throw some ice down the back. And I
Mm.
know that those 3, 4 minutes, even though I could have rushed out of there and been like, oh, the clock is going, we're racing. Like I know that those 3 or 4 minutes, those might have saved me hours. And
Ah,
so that's the other side of that wisdom. It's like, yes, there are ways that experience makes you faster, like immediately, but there are ways that experience allows you to know when to spend time to be able to save time later.
yeah, it's like slow down to speed up. And
Exactly. Yeah.
um,
And just even simply like running up a hill. Like,
mm,
okay, like I know exactly where that threshold is that I need to start hiking versus running. Whereas somebody that is maybe newer to mountain running it will try to like, oh, we're in a race. I need to run this whole hill. It's like, okay, well, you're 10 seconds faster than me up that hill running versus me hiking. Just wasted you 20 minutes the last 10 miles of this race because you burned so many matches. And it's just knowing where to spend your energy and how to spend it just comes from time and wisdom.
yeah, yeah, so smart and so true. I think the in anything, if you can do something more efficiently and make fewer mistakes along the way, you're probably going to get to that finish line quicker. And
Yeah.
that could be whatever you're talking about, right? If you're rushing out the house in the morning and then you're rushing so much that you spill your coffee on the ground and now you need to spend 5 minutes to clean that all up. It's like if you just was slowed
Right.
down just a touch, take a
Yep.
beat, you probably would have got out the door 4 minutes faster and all would have been okay. Or
Exactly.
in traffic or whatever we're talking about. Um, so let's transition to these flat courses, looped races, treadmills, where we talked on our last conversation, and you alluded to it here a lot about like the mindset piece. And not that
Yeah.
mindset doesn't obviously come into play when you're running 100 plus miles through the mountains. But when you're running in an oval or on a flat track, running laps on like a 1 mile circuit or something for hours, that is very different than running through like beautiful scenery of
Right.
Colorado or wherever these races are held. So, how did you get into doing that? And then tell us about some of the um, awesome events you've been able to do, some of the records that you hold, and what you've got coming up here in just a few short months away.
Sure. So how I got into it is kind of by accident and kind of interesting. So I always like to dabble and I want to do a lot of things and try different things and experience everything that the sport has to offer. Even if I know I'm not going to be good at it, I want to try it and feel what it like feel what it feels like to be bad at something.
Yeah.
So that's just led me to trying a bunch of different formats of racing. And one of those formats was long, flat, and fast. And I figured out pretty quickly that I was pretty good at it. And it's because I can manipulate my mindset a little bit more in those formats than I can in a mountain race where it's okay, now I'm going uphill, now I'm going downhill. Okay, now it's flat. Okay, now it's up. And it's like there's never that real opportunity to kind of dull the mind and meditate out, which
Mhm.
is something that like even like day-to-day life I've always been noticeably good at. Like when I want to disengage, I can disengage mentally. And so I dabbled in some flat races and realized that like I could zone out and just cruise and not even think about what I was doing for the first 10, 12, 13 hours, like whenever, like whatever it was. And I was like, okay, so the skill set's there mentally. Let's maybe work on the physical side of it. And so there was some specific training that went into that, and based on again, it's not the format that I enjoy the most. I said this before. I enjoy the mountain running better just because it's like, oh, like I could see a moose or a bear. Like it's just really cool to be like, okay, now I'm going to this next aid station and it's gonna be whatever, and I'll see these people. And like flat running is super boring. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's flat, and you're just running the same grade for 100 miles for 24 hours, whatever it is. So point to point 100 miles or out and back 100 miles on flat is one thing that I started training for. I ended up running a 100 miles sub 8 minute pace and a couple years ago, and that was at first like, okay, this could be something that I could be good at, because that was a race that I didn't even think. It's so weird. I didn't even think until I think 100K 70 miles into the race. I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm doing what I wanted to. Here we go.
Yeah.
And then once I started thinking, I started struggling a little bit, and then I had to run a super fast last 5K to get under that 8 minute barrier for average pace at the end. And then that kind of transitioned to this other aspect of the sport of ultra running, or other element of it, which is fixed time racing. And
Yeah.
so fixed time racing is you're not racing a distance, you're racing the clock. And so whatever that time on the clock, so you're racing a most common a 6 hour, a 12 hour, a 24 hour, 48 hour, up to 6 day, 10 day now. Um, that is a format that's always interests me, just because it's you versus you. Like, yes, you're racing each other, but it's always like, how far can I run in 24 hours? That that question is kind of the essence of everything that I've ever done in running. It's always been a piece of curiosity of like, oh, I wonder if I can do this race in this pace. I can go this fast. And I probably said it in the first time we talked, and I'll say it in probably every podcast I ever say is, but I'm deeply, deeply motivated on the idea of not being like old man Don and looking back and saying like, what if, like, what would have happened if I tried to do this? What would have happened, or what could I have been capable of if I pushed myself in this area or this? Like, could I have run, 13-hour 100? Could I have run X amount of miles on a treadmill? And so that thought motivates me a lot. And then the curiosity of that distilled down is perfect for fixed time racing. So,
John,
yeah,
where do you think where do you think that comes from? Like, where do you think that mentality or that mindset of I do not want to look back and regret and wonder what if I would have done this? What if I would have tried that? Like, where do you think that comes from? Is that the way that like you feel like you've always been and you remember feeling like that even as when you were younger, or like where do you think you developed that kind of mentality
I,
along the way?
I honestly don't know, but I think it probably, if I had to really psychoanalyze myself on the fly here, I think it probably comes from getting into the sport as an overweight dude, no expectations, pretty slow. Was when I first started ultra running, I was dang near last in my first few races. I was really, really bad. So I had no expectations other than to do the thing. And now as I've pushed myself, like I've been able to, be at the front of the pack and set records and things like that. And I think there's this piece of me that like I'm not at all afraid of failure in this sport, because I started from nothing. I started from like almost not finishing and being really, really bad. So like if I shoot for a lofty goal, or I shoot my shot on something that I don't know if I can do, what's the worst that's going to happen? And that's just, okay, well, I'm still further than I ever thought I'd ever be in this sport. And I'm just very grateful for how I've come about being successful, and not just waking up and being good at it. Like I know the hard work that went into to getting here. So I can see that in myself. I can see that in others, of like I know how freaking hard this sport is. So I don't want to miss this opportunity that I've created, if you will, for myself, of being in this position to do cool things.
Yeah.
And like if I don't get them, then I know where that boundary is of what I can be capable of. But I just don't want to miss an opportunity to try something that maybe I could have been capable of.
Yeah, and I know I derailed us just a touch there, but I think we've stumbled into a great conversation of that's one of the things you said is that like especially in the fixed time races, like you're really competing against yourself. Like how hard, how far can I push myself? And that may or may not have any bearing or impact on what the other competitors are doing. Um, because you're not exactly racing them. And that's one of the things I love about racing in general, track or swimming or like whatever we're talking about, yes, you are competing against the other people that are there with you, but there's also that clock element. Whether the clock is fixed and you're going for a distance, or that the clock is running and you know what the distance is and you're going for a time, is you could lose to all the other people there, but you could still win because it's a personal best for you, or it's the second best
Yep.
time you've ever done, or whatever. And that's the thing that I've always loved about that compared to the other sports that I've participated in, football, wrestling, things where they're like, well, there's a score on the scoreboard, and
Yeah.
when the game's over or the match is over, who won and who lost. And it's like you could have a really great game. The quarterback or the receiver, whatever, could have like an amazing game, but the team will still lose. And at the end
Yeah.
of the day, it's a loss. And
Yep.
everyone goes home feeling disappointed because you lost. And especially when you're talking about the people that are doing this for the passion and for the joy, and there's not, multi-million dollar contracts that like yeah, you lost the game, but they still went home like making $5 million for that game based on their
Yeah.
annual contract. So
Go to your
like,
mansion.
so, but I mean, for pretty much everybody listening to this, it's like that's one of the cool things about whether it's running or cycling or whatever, some sort of a sport where it's racing based, is
Yep.
it's really about competing with yourself and
Yep.
not necessarily competing against the other people. That's kind of like a byproduct to me.
Yeah.
And I think there are many people, whether it's in athletics or whether it's in life, who, like you just said, I'm not afraid of failure. There's many people that don't do things because they're afraid that it's not going to work out, right? They're
Yep.
afraid to, whatever the example is, like go for that job, or they're afraid to go for that girl or that guy. They're afraid to ask so and so out at a dance because they're afraid that it's not going to work out. They're afraid of being told no. They're afraid of failure, and they miss out on a lot of cool opportunities as a result of that. And I think just what I want to encourage everybody listening to this to do is whatever is coming to your mind as we talk about this, like whatever thing you're currently considering doing that you're not doing because you're worried how it's going to turn out, or you're worried someone's going to say no, or you're worried what other people are going to think, or you're worried, what if I just can't do it? What if I'm not good enough to do it? Well, there's only one way to find out, right?
Right.
And that's to go do the thing or to put yourself in the environment to do the thing. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's going to require a lot of hard work, or sometimes that's going to require, like Don said earlier, surrounding yourself with a team of people that have answers to the things that you don't have all the answers to. And, that's fine. It takes what it takes to be able to do the things that you want to do. But the only way to find out is to go do it. And if
Yeah.
you
What's the worst that can happen?
yeah, exactly. What's the worst that could happen? I mean, unless we're literally talking about something that's like life or death, okay, then maybe we have a different conversation, but there's a risk reward kind of conversation. But as long as that's not what we're talking about, what's the worst that can happen? So you
Yeah.
don't make it and you have to pick yourself back up off the mat and reanalyze some things. That's not too bad of a
And no matter what, like for the most part, 99% of the scenarios, even if you fail miserably, you're going to learn something from it.
100%.
There is going to be a positive takeaway from failure. And like maybe it's oh, I approached it the wrong way, or I wasn't as prepared as I thought, so I need to do X, Y, and Z. There should be some action item takeaway from failure that can maybe it makes you more likely to do it the next time, or maybe you get halfway through, you're like, you know what, I actually hate this, and now I know, and I don't even need to come back, and you're going to learn something positive.
Totally. And you're probably going to inspire a lot of people along the way that you don't even know. Like that's some great's going to happen that you're not even aware of yet. And you just got to go do the things.
Yep.
Now, Don, you hold some records in these flat, boring, long races. And then
Yep.
you're part of a USA team that's going to compete in France in a few months. Tell us about that stuff.
All right, so story time. 2021, I was living in Fairplay, Colorado, up high in the mountains, and I had moved there to train and I like, as I said, I like being in the mountains more, and I moved to 10,000 feet to live in the mountains, and um, two things happened moving up there. It's like one, I realized that yes, I do love living in the mountains and living up high, but um, two, it's a really freaking hard place to train year round because the weather is just so terrible. So about 7 months of the year, there's snow on the ground up there. And I was finding myself doing two things a lot of. I was finding myself going to the only places I could run outside were like was around the courthouse in town or the track and on a treadmill. And so um, during this time, I thought, like, okay, like, well, I'd love to have a new treadmill. What could I do that could get me a free treadmill? And specifically, I wanted a manual treadmill. So an assault runner specifically is kind of what I was had my eye on. And I was like, okay, what could I do? And like, what's my skill set? Well, I could run long and I could run just juice. So I put together this idea of doing a 24-hour run on a manual treadmill for charity. And then I started thinking, I was like, well, if I'm doing it, like, might as well poke around and see what the world records are. And so I looked into the 12-hour, the 100-hour, and the 24-hour world records for a manual treadmill. And they were, in my estimation, they were all pretty low and pretty soft. And
Probably
so
not
so
a lot of
basically,
probably not a lot of people have done those things. I mean,
no,
most
the
people
bar for 24 hours was set at 80 miles. And I was like, okay, I think I can do that. And so I was like, well, if I wanted 100 anyways in 24 hours, I think I can, I think I can get all of them. So um I reached out to some companies and got a hold of Assault Runner, and they're like, "This sounds like a terrible idea. We're in." And here's so they sent me a treadmill. So first box checked. That was the goal. They sent me a treadmill, and then it became this huge thing. I got a couple of brands involved, and we ended up setting up a pop-up event in New York City, in downtown Manhattan, during the New York City Marathon week, and we set up right in front, right in the lobby, so street side, right in front of the windows of a Lifetime Fitness in downtown Manhattan. So picture like the world's biggest fishbowl, and it's basically what I was setting up on a manual treadmill, and yeah, I just ran for 24 hours on that sucker, got all three of the world records, ended up at it's out of my mind right now. It's like 115 miles, something like that is kind of
I
where I ended up.
remember something in that neighborhood,
Yeah.
kind of following along this journey of yours on social media and whatnot. And then I think when we recorded last, it was like shortly after you had done that. So, we're probably getting close to 2 years ago that you had done that. So, because isn't that marathon's in the fall?
Yeah, it was I think it was the last week in October.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, we're 2.5 years removed
Oh yeah, yeah, getting
from that
close to three
challenge.
years. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I was like, I ended up with, obviously I got all three records. I probably if I add the metric records in there too with 50K and 100K, I probably would have gotten those two, but I was not trying to just cherry pick every record I could have grabbed. So I just submitted for yeah, 12, 24, and 100 miles.
Mhm.
And that was freaking hard. It
Yeah.
was so hard. I don't know if everybody's run on a manual treadmill, but it is not easy, fresh. And then 16 hours in, when your balance and your core strength and all of your stabilizers are exhausted, trying to stay upright on that thing, because one of the rules for records was I can't touch the handrails at all. Like
Oh.
if the belt is moving at all, I cannot touch the handrails.
Oh wow.
So there were some sketchy moments of like, oh, here we go, like run a little faster, the belt goes faster, try to slow down, and I'm leaning forward, the belt's going faster. It got really difficult, but we got the record, and ironically, I was so mentally scarred from running so many miles training on that treadmill that I haven't gotten back on a manual treadmill since. And I ended up trading it to when I was in Fairplay. I ended up trading it to my local gym for some personal training hours.
That is
Um,
so funny.
yeah, it was. I have no desire to ever get back on. People ask me like, "Oh, if somebody breaks your record, are you gonna go?" Like, hell no. Like that is your record. I know how miserable that thing was. So that was kind of the first side of it with like, okay, I'm training a lot on the treadmill in Fairplay during the winter, so let's do something on a treadmill. And then the other thing was I was running on the track and I was doing these loops just to keep fit in the winter because there's literally nowhere else I can run because everything else is covered in snow.
Yeah.
And I started like like people think I'm absolutely crazy for doing 4 hours around a city block at 10,000 feet, but that really wasn't that bad. Like I could just zone out or listen to an audiobook or something, and I did my 4 hour run. Like, why is that so hard? And so I realized that not a lot of people maybe had that skill set mentally to do that. And I was like, okay, well, how can I how can I take advantage of it and get into the sport? And so I poked around and started looking for some 24-hour races. And one of the things that's always appealed to me is from sun up to sun up, how many miles can I run in 24 hours, right? Like a pure day.
Mhm.
If I have to do nothing but run, how many miles can I run? And so I started really tapping into that idea. And so I signed up for my first true 24-hour race, which was the 24-hour US National Championships at the end of 2023. And I lucked out because the weather that day was terrible.
Oh,
And it was a day that so it poured rain all of the first part of the race, and then it got to like 90 degrees. It was in Phoenix, and it was just so it was like the worst combination of you're miserably wet for the first part, and then you're 90 degrees humid hot. And so I say I was lucky because I was just tough enough to survive and was lucky to put up a number good enough to win the US national title at the end of 2023. And since then, I have run two other pure 24-hour races. And when I say 24-hour races, for anybody not familiar, they're looped races on various size courses. So that first race I did was on a like a 0.9 mile loop. And then I ran a race in last year in June that was on a 500-meter oval around an Olympic speed skating oval.
and where was
And
that?
that was in Milwaukee.
Sorry, I had to get the Wisconsin plug in
Get
there.
get your
Appreciate
plug for your boys back home. Yeah, so that was indoors on an indoor oval for 24 hours, which again provided some mental challenges where you cannot see outside. You don't know what time of day it is visually, which had its advantages, but mostly it was just really tough not knowing like, where you are in the day because you're just still running. So that was the first race I did with a very direct goal of qualifying for the US national team for the 24-hour world championships. So every 2 years there's a 24-hour world championships that are held, and it's the longest event that's fully sanctioned by United States Track and Field. And it's always been a dream to some degree to represent Team USA in something. Never had a pure vision, but it's just, man, how cool would it be to wear red, white, and blue at a world championships, fully team kit and all that stuff. So once I started dabbling in this 24-hour format, I was like, okay, this is the goal. This is it. This is the target. It's to be a member of Team USA and represent the red, white, and blue at a world championships.
Yeah.
So that race in Milwaukee was the first race I did with the goal of making that team. And to make that team, there's a approximately an 18-month qualifying window
Mm.
for every athlete to go out and run sanctioned 24-hour races. And then the top 6 athletes from that qualifying window make the US team. And and so and with that, and it's not just blanket the top 6. There is a minimum number you have to hit to qualify, which for men is 140 miles in 24 hours. So I knew going to Milwaukee that Okay, that's the goal. That's the target, 140 plus miles. The first race I did in bad weather, I only ran 127 miles. So pretty big jump, but I was like, I know I can do it. I'm super confident. So from November of 23 to June of 24, I then ran 144 miles, got my name on the list, and I did two things. I both qualified and I was in a scoring position, so a top six position for the U.S. team, but I also knew that that number wasn't good enough to stand.
Yeah.
It was not going to hold up. So
Qualified for
I,
now, but somebody's
yeah, I
people
say
are gonna
there was almost a year left in the qualifying window. Somebody like multiple people were going to run more than that. So I had another race on my calendar, which was Desert Solstice in December, that I knew was like this is the real target. This is the race that is going to make or break whether I go to 24-hour World Championships or not. So I spent June to September training for a mountain race, of course, right? Like you're doing something good. Let's totally change gears and go do some mountain stuff. But that kept that candle burning. It kept the passion burning and kept me excited to keep training. And to some degree, there's like fitness is fitness. Like, just
sure.
because it's not super specific, it doesn't mean I wasn't helping myself run better at the end of the year. So I ran Run Rabbit Run 100 in September, and then everything after that was on the track. So I spent all of my time on the track from September to October because Desert Solstice is a track race. It's a 400-meter loop in the middle of Phoenix on a high school track for 24 hours.
Yeah.
And I knew, again, I knew my number wasn't going to hold up. I didn't know what the number was going to take. And in my mind, it was going to be 153 or above, but I knew I was in shape to run a lot more than that. So I didn't know what was going to take, but I knew what I should get. So I go to Desert Solstice and I had a really good 18 hours I survived the last 6 hours and just gutted it through and was lucky enough and trained enough to run 154.3 in 24 hours, which thankfully come May when they announced the teams was good enough to officially qualify me for the United States 24-hour team competing October 18th in Albi, France. Both for that race is two races in one. So there's obviously an individual race for individual champions and individual podiums, but the biggest race that Team USA has a chance to medal at is the team competition, which will take each team's top three scores and combine them, and the top three countries there's your podium. So Team USA, both men's and women's, have really really good teams, and I'm gonna go out there and with two goals. One, I can manage myself. One, I can't. But the first goal, PR.
Yeah.
So over 154.3. I I'm fairly confident that I am 100% confident that I have the ability to. It's going to take work, but I can run in the mid 160s. That's going to be the target there. And if we can get three guys on the US to run in the 160s, we should medal, which is the second goal, is to walk away and help the US win a world medal, 24-hour world championships.
That would be so cool, and we'll be obviously cheering you on from here. I mean, the fact of qualifying for something like that, it's so cool. I think there's probably a lot of people listening to this that don't even know that Team USA or that the world has a 24-hour running championships that takes place every couple years. And I was probably one of those people up until a few years ago. So, 10 years ago, I didn't know that there was a 24-hour championships. So, one thing as like the PT in me that I want to ask you is where or not where, what do you find from like a body standpoint is
Mm-hmm.
so different from preparing for these mountain races compared to preparing for these flat running in an oval type of races? And I want you to answer for us like how does it work when you're running on a track or on a circuit like that 0.9 mile paved path that you were talking about? Like how do they flip you guys around? How often do you
Yeah.
turn and change directions? Because I know you don't run left the whole time, but how does that work?
Yeah, so first part of your answer. So big mountain running, it's a lot more big muscle groups where it's like, hey, like I'm pounding quads uphill and downhill and really pushing the glutes and things like that. So it is more of your like traditional powerlifting muscles, whereas track is it's a lot of the accessory muscles. It's a lot of the stabilizers because it's circles, it's loops, it's the same thing over and over and over and over again. And if you're how should I put this? The more asymmetric you are as a runner, the more problems you're going to have later.
Yeah.
And so the more that I can work on my asymmetries and I can stabilize, so there's like I actually started today, right? So I took a week off of most things last week just for recovery, and today, this morning was my first like strength workout back, and I've programmed a lot more like stability stuff and side planks and like single leg glute bridges and things that are just pure stability more so. And those are things that good to do all the time. Don't get me wrong, but like there's a much more of a focus on them during this block than there was in the last block. Because if you think about trail running, every step is different to some degree. Like you're on a rock, you're off a rock, you're on the side of a trail. It's like everything's just a little different. And so those asymmetries don't necessarily rear their ugly head as early.
Sure.
This is none of this is to say don't try to become symmetrical as a trail runner, but they don't come out as early. Whereas running on a track and running very, very flat, they can come out very quickly and you will find your weakness very fast, especially because you're combining it with trying to run fast and run hard
Yeah.
for 24 hours. So that's the biggest difference for me between the two. And you know, as I shift gears, I definitely, and this is one of the reasons that I have a PT appointment immediately when I'm starting training is like let's work with Dr. Ali to like refresh the program with the goal in mind of making sure I am symmetrical as hell going into 24-hour worlds.
Yeah.
Um, I've lost the second part of your question.
Yeah, I was just curious, like, how do they structure the race for you
Yep.
guys? Where, like, how often do you turn, run the other direction, and whatnot? And is it? And I'm just glancing at the clock here. I know we've got like 10 minutes left, and then I've got to jump to another another call. But um, in the mountain races, you're going to come up to an aid station, and those are placed at certain intervals along the course. Is it the same way in a looped race where like you're only allowed to stop certain times, or do you have free reign to stop as often as you want? Of course, you're just stopping and that's stopping you
Yep.
from running, and you have to make that decision when to stop.
Yep. Yep. So the easy one here is every race is a little different on changing directions. So last 24-hour race I did, Desert Solstice, we changed, I think it was every 4 hours. You flip directions on the track. It's usually either 4 or 6, depending on the race. Those are the pretty normal standard direction changing, which is great. It gives you a little bit of a different view, and it changes. Obviously, if you're leaning in on your right hip on one way, and now you're leaning in on your left hip, it kind of changes the muscles up just a touch. But for the most part, yeah, it's 4 or 6 hours. They switch directions. I'm not sure the 24-hour World Championship course in Albi, France, it's kind of a winding course a bit. So I'm not sure, to be totally honest, of if there are any direction changes, just because you
Yeah.
do take both left turns and right turns is pretty much equally throughout the course. So I'm not sure. I've tried to find it, but there's not a ton of information on the course quite yet. So TBD there. And then so the thing with fixed time racing is your only currency for your race is time, and how you spend it's completely up to you.
Mm.
So 24 hours at Desert Solstice, the only times I was not running was when I ran to the porta potty and took a leak and then got out and I was running again. So I ran all but I would say 2 minutes total of that race. I was running, and not always as fast as I wanted to be, but I was running every single time. So to do that, yeah, you see your crew every 2 minutes. You know, it's a 400-meter track. You see them every lap, and so there's a communication element and a planning element of, hey, like I'm gonna have a gel. For me, I have a gel every hour. and I have a 250 milliliter bottle of calories and electrolytes every 30 minutes. That's 300 calories an hour and 75 grams of carbs for me per hour. And it's like super, super dialed. And I don't have to think about the time. I know when it's time to eat or drink, there is somebody standing on the side of the track that's going to hand it to me.
Yep.
So that's where I can just zone out. But that's it's good and it's bad having your crew that readily available because it's you're always there and there's always somebody to wouldn't it be great if I could just sit down next to my wife right now and not be running? So there's an element of it you have to fight and resist. Like, oh, I'm at the finish line all the time. Don't stop, just keep going. But it is really nice if something like if you need to triage something or hey, like I need X, Y, and Z. Like they'll have it for me in 2 minutes or 2 minutes and 4 seconds,
Yep.
and I can get it from them. And there's just different ways of handing off. So like if it's like a I don't know a chafe cream or something like that, we have these little condiment cups that you might get at a fast food restaurant for ketchup. We just
Yep.
grabbed a bunch and they'll squeeze it in there and hand it off to me, and then I'll just on the fly do what I need.
Yeah.
So you practice running 8 minute pace while doing whatever you need. And then from the mental side, we kind of really briefly flex this, but one of my biggest assets in 24-hour racing on a looped course is using my crew to help me with my mindset because it's a reset every time you come back. It's like you could look at that as a negative, or you could say, hey, like every time I cross the start finish line, I have a chance to reset. And my crew knows me well enough to know kind of when the body language is starting to droop. Like my body language will fail before my pace will start
Sure.
slowing down. And so this past race, just I'll throw one example out. My last race, my wife and my mother-in-law are my main crew for all these things, and they know me really well. So they printed a large stack of pictures of my dogs. And whenever they saw my body language start to fall, they would like roll it up, like scroll it up into a little roll and then hand me this like 9 by 11 printed picture of my dogs. And I would legitimately run an entire lap just looking at my dogs.
Yep.
And that reset that mindset for however long it until the next one. But it's a matter of you just need something to interrupt the negativity or the thought process of, oh, I'm not running as I want to. Well, who cares? You're still running.
Yep.
And having that crew regularly being able to see it quickly
Mm.
is really important because if that happened and you were out on a mountain course and it's 5 miles until you see your crew, you could degradate your pace from I'm running to I'm hurting, I'm running, I'm walking, I'm barely walking. Now I'm like just dragging
Yep.
and you could kill an hour. But being able to see your crew so frequently, they can catch that quickly and we can correct it quickly so I can stay on track with my goals.
I think it's so important, just like what you just said, for us to think about that in our everyday lives, right? Other people, not yourself, are often going to notice small changes in you, in your behavior before you do. And
Yep.
when you have really strong relationships and connections with those people, they can point those things out to you or they're comfortable enough to bring those things to your attention so that you can course correct and change those things before you go so far down the rabbit hole that now it takes a lot more effort and time to dig yourself back out of that. Like in a race, if you degrade your pace down so far and then now you're trying to scrap and claw to bring that back to the pace you wanted. So it's yeah, it's so relevant to everything that we're doing. We're just talking about it in the context of ultra running. And all of you guys out there that are runners, I think you can appreciate how fast it is that Don is running these races because running an 8 minute mile is not easy for anybody to do, let alone doing it for 24 hours on end or 100 miles or like whatever these intervals are. When that's something that many people just can't do in general and for 1 mile. So it's so impressive to like think about these feats that you're able to do and all the people that are on this USA team, men and women that you're going to go compete with. We just are going to be cheering you on big time here from the States and hoping you guys bring home those goals and those medals and whatnot, and all the things you guys are hoping to achieve. We want you to achieve them. So Don, I want to give you just a chance to put a brief plug in there for Say Sky if you would like to. I know that's a big part of what you're talking about these days and wearing it right there on your shirt. And we'll let you
Yes,
get on here.
sir. Yeah, so when I'm not running, I'm the head of Americas for Sky, which is a really, really incredible Danish running apparel company based out of Copenhagen, Denmark. And just some of the coolest people that are community driven. Their idea is of apparel is everybody deserves really, really nice and comfortable apparel. Like doesn't like your pace is the least interesting thing about you. Like just get out and run, and you deserve to be comfortable, look good, feel good. So check out Say Sky. If you listen to this, drop me a DM. Maybe I'll throw you a coupon code or something. But it's awesome. I've been with the brand. I actually started as an athlete for them, and then convinced them to give me a job because I like the stuff so much, and I just like the culture of the brand so much. So um, I think everybody that finds them will enjoy both of those. So yeah, check them out, saysky.com, or like I said, drop me a DM at Ramathon, and I can probably throw you a coupon or code.
Yeah, we'll put your contact information in the show notes, so you guys can all go check that out. And I'm gonna send you a message. I gotta get my hands
Heck
on
yeah.
a outfit here and go try it out. Don, I really appreciate your time hopping on here, man, for the second time on the code. This conversation was great. Any last words before we sign off here?
I just challenge everybody to think about the reason that they do what they do and think about the passion and the joy behind it. And if you feel like that's waning, then maybe rethink it and challenge yourself to rediscovering the passion and joy for the things that you like.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Couldn't have said it better myself. And as you guys know, here on the code, we part of why we do what we do is we want to bring you conversations with industry experts on all of the topics that impact your health and wellness, sleep, nutrition, fitness, relationships, all of that stuff. And you guys hear it in the intro, but in order to get this show out to more and more people, it is so important that you guys go leave your feedback so that we can get conversations that are relevant to what you want to hear about. And if you've never done so, now would be an awesome time. And we'd really appreciate it if you could leave a review on this podcast, whatever platform you're on, so that we can get this out to more eyes and ears and really spread these messages around. So, Don, thanks again for your time. All you guys that tuned in to listen to us here on the code. Until next time, Dr. Andrew Fix signing off, and we'll see you on the next episode. Later.